Just to begin with, I heard an interview online with you from, I guess, about 7 or 8 years ago the other day, and you said there that you'd definitely recorded your last album, There Would Be No More, and just last year you came out with The Art of Obscurity. So was there anything in particular that brought about that change of heart?
Well, what I actually said was that I would not be making any more solo albums.
Mm-hmm.
And I made that statement after I'd already recorded Obscurity.
Oh, you had recorded it?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh, right.
Yeah, so I'm still living up to it. Whether I can hold out or not is a different matter, but we'll see.
So it's still not a case of never say never then?
No, but I can't. It's my 10th solo album, and I kind of feel 10th. No, it's my 20th solo album, and I feel that enough is enough with solo albums. There are other things that I want to do. I'm not going to stop recording, but I think that's enough solo albums.
So in the future, you're looking at either band or collaborative projects?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Just going right back to the early days, even prior to Fairport, there was a band called The Pyramid. Can you tell us about that band?
Yeah, Pyramid was my first band after I moved to London in 1966. It was primarily a trio. With only one of us played an instrument. The songwriter Steve Hyatt played guitar, and so whenever we went out to perform, we took a whole backing band out with us. And I think in this period of sort of 66, almost up until when I joined Fairport, we did quite a few shows around the south of England.
And I think I saw you were reunited with those guys not too long ago.
Yeah, we've been working on, the songwriter Steve Hyatt had so much material from that period because we only ever recorded 1, 2, 3 of his songs, and he lives in Paris these days, and he called me and told me he was thinking of using all of his songs from the 60s to make a solo album. And the more we talked, the more it was apparent that he really didn't want to make a solo album. What he wanted to do was to try and make a Pyramid album, which we never did at the time. And one thing led to another. We ended up getting together a few times and working some songs out. We've actually recorded a couple so far, but I don't think any of us are particularly happy with the outcome. So it's sort of a vanity project that as long as the three of us are still alive, we'll keep plugging away at it. Yeah. There's no label involved. There's no time frame involved. So it's just whenever we can make it, really.
Sure. So what were the circumstances way back then that led you to becoming a member of Fairport Convention?
I got a phone call one day towards the end of Pyramid from a man named Tony Hall, who was running DRM Records at the time in London, and he'd been contacted by the bass player from Fairport, and they were looking for a singer. They had a female singer, and they wanted to have a male and a female singer, and I went along to meet everybody. They were in the studio recording their first single, and I just jumped in and contributed, and it was that simple, really.
Do you think, though, that your departure from Fairport was something of a blessing in disguise, and that it gave you the motivation to pursue your own musical path?
Yeah, I mean, it was painful at the time because I didn't see it coming. But I'd already been thinking that the direction they were heading in was not something I particularly wanted to do. You know, with Sandy's involvement, they began moving off in a very serious traditional direction, and it just wasn't on my agenda at the time. And I have to say that it became pretty apparent probably a year after that it was the best thing that could have happened for any of us.
Yeah. Have you ever sat and pondered how your life may have panned out had you not left when you did and stayed on? Do you think you'd still be at the same point you are now?
Who can say? You know, I mean, I don't really think about that stuff, John. I just, I just move forward and fix my eyes on the horizon.
Did you remain a Fairport fan through the years following your departure?
I did. I did for quite a long time. In fact, the album they made several years later, Full House, is one of my favorite Fairport albums. And plus, they all, well, not all of them, but almost all of them contributed to my first Southern Comfort recording as well.
That's right. So it must have been, I assume by that it was a reasonably amicable parting of the ways. Yeah,
there just wasn't time for any sour grapes. You know, we needed to move on, and it wasn't talked about for a long time, but it was understood that they had done what they needed to do. It wasn't necessarily that they did what they did. It's just the way that it was done. You know, it was a little bit underhanded the way it was dealt with. But you just have to let that stuff go and move on.
Can you figure a point in time where you felt you really began to develop a self-confidence in yourself as a songwriter?
Oh, about 5 years ago.
Really?
I think, I took some time off in the 80s, in the late 80s, when I did some A&R for a couple of labels. And my intention at the time was to make that my new career and to forget about creating music. It didn't work out that way. I ended up back into it. And I think at that point, I made a pact with myself that my songwriting was my main thrust, and that I wanted to work on my songwriting until I reached a point where I could go out and play solo and represent my own songs and feel comfortable standing up there by myself doing it. So I would say probably the mid-90s was when I first began to feel okay about my songwriting.
I was going to mention that period of time you spent working in A&R. Looking back on that now, what did you take from that experience? That
you should never try and influence. You should never try and influence the direction for an artist. You should never try and guide them around all those potholes in the roads, because they don't want to be guided around them. You just have to let them fall into them and sort it out themselves.
Yeah.
Just the way I did, just the way everyone I know did, you know. People, they just don't want to know about shortcuts, and I think that was the biggest lesson doing A&R. Don't try and guide them along, just let them find their own way.
Did you find it an advantage having been an artist yourself working in A&R?
Well, I think I understood a lot of the reasons that artists did what they did simply because I'd done it myself. I also, I was, the reason I stopped doing A&R was because I was so torn between being an artist and being an executive, and I just couldn't get my head around the reasons that some of the decisions were made on an executive side, when they affected the artist in a very negative way.
Talk about Matthew's Southern Comfort. Did you have a blueprint for the sound of that band when you put it all together?
Well, by the time I put the band together, I did, because the sound was really a reflection of that first album. I'd used a pedal steel guitar for the very first time on the album, and that was the sound that everyone embraced when the record came out, and consequently, when the record was out, there were calls for seeing the band play live, and at that point I put a band together, and of course there had to be a pedal steel guitar player in the band. It wasn't something that I was really in love with, you know. I was experimenting with the album, and I really don't, I thought I had a strong fondness for pedal steel guitar, but quite honestly, John, a little steel goes a long, long way.
Sure does. You found yourself with chart success with your version of Woodstock, which the arrangement differs from both the Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young version and Joni Mitchell's original, obviously. How did your arrangement come together?
We just put it together in rehearsal. We didn't really think about what it was going to be and how it was going to sound. I mean, it obviously was not, because there was a band involved, it was not going to sound like Joni's original version. And at that point in time, I don't think any of us had heard the Crosby, Stills and Nash version either.
Okay.
I think that the two versions seem to come together around the same time.
Was it a tough decision for you to pack up and leave for America when you did?
No, it was a very easy decision. It was something that I'd wanted to do for a couple of years. I mean, all the music I was listening to and all the music I was inspired by at that time was coming from the West Coast, and when the record company suggested that I go out there and make a record, I couldn't wait to get moving.
And your departure from Matthew's Southern Comfort, was there a motivating factor there?
I just wasn't in love with the band. I thought that we peaked very quickly, and I just, again, because of the pedal steel, I just didn't see anywhere to take it. It's a very domineering instrument, and the sound was instantly centered around the sound of a pedal steel, and it just wasn't. I didn't want to be a contemporary country artist. I wanted to be a contemporary singer-songwriter. Yeah.
I guess of all the bands you've been associated with, Plainsong has probably been the one you've spent the most time with, albeit in different formations. Going back to the original formation of Plainsong, did you have long-term hopes for that?
I think we did at the time. It was just, the timing was just unfortunate, because it was only a year into Plainsong when I had the offer to go to the West Coast and explore other things. So it was a tough choice: leave Plainsong and go there, or carry on with Plainsong and see what happened to it. But I think, well, you know, it's another case of hindsight. I think it's this far down the line, it's impossible to really have hindsight about it. The good thing was that Plainsong, after a 10-year hiatus, Plainsong continued, and we built on what we'd had back then.
You've always given me the impression of an artist that likes to challenge himself rather than stay in the comfort zone, in the safe area. Would that be a fair assessment, and maybe a key element of your longevity in music?
I think I like to think so. I don't want to view myself as a heritage act. I feel I have so much more inside of me. And once you do that, I don't think there's really any going back. You know, once you become an oldies act, that's pretty much what you are. I've seen it happen to so many people I know, and there's no escaping it once you're in there.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
Mm. You've gone down the path of both solo artist and band member, and I guess both paths have their advantages and disadvantages. Which for you has given you the most self-satisfaction?
Oh, I think being a solo artist, really. I have a very strong idea about about what I want to do and how I want to do it, and a band for the most part is a democratic unit, and I don't really function. There's always strong points and weak points in a band, John, and unfortunately, when you're in a band to that degree, everyone has a say in it, and everyone shouldn't necessarily have a say. I think my preferred way to work is in a duo or a trio at the most, but with people whose musical vision I respect and can go along with. A band as a band never really appealed to me.
Yeah.
I think Fairport is a typical example of that too, because although Fairport, when I was in the band, was supposed to be a democratic unit, every single song we did was done in the key that was best for the guitar players.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly.
You have caught up with your old Fairport colleagues in recent years at their Croppity Festival. That must have been a great experience for you, though.
Yeah, it's always good to see them. I don't necessarily enjoy playing the old material, but if we do it once every 4 or 5 years, I'm okay with it. As long as I can show the newer stuff too, and let people see where I am now, as opposed to what they want to hear.
You've been very, very prolific through your career, and I was looking at your website the other day. Even in the last 15 years or so, there's been so many albums, either with bands or different collaborative efforts. Do you think you get a little bit restless at times if you're in the one field for too long?
I don't think it's about being restless. I just think it's a need to explore and just chase ideas and work with people that I've wanted to work with. It probably comes across as a restlessness from the outside, but that's really not what it's about. You never can tell how long something like this is going to last, and I try and put as much in there as I possibly can in as short a time as I can, because you never know when it's over.
Yeah. So it's probably more of a longing to diversify rather than a feeling of restlessness.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely not a restlessness. I could never say that about myself.
One recent collaborator of yours is Egbert Derricks.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell us a bit about Egbert?
Well, he and I live in the same small town in the south of Holland, and I met Egbert shortly after moving down here. He had his own jazz quartet, and a friend of mine who runs a local music cafe suggested that I come along to a show and see them play and meet Egbert, and it sort of coincided with me going out and putting a tour together, actually, to celebrate 33 1/3 years of my album If You Saw Through My Eyes. And after seeing the Searing Quartet play, it was just a natural for me to invite Egbert to be part of that. And then our musical affiliation developed from that tour, really.
And you've been in Holland for over a decade now?
Yeah, 15 years.
What was the initial draw to move there?
It was a place to land. I'd been living in Texas, And I'd known for quite a while that I wanted to come back to Europe. I didn't know where, I didn't know how, and a friend of mine was my publisher, and she had a big apartment in Amsterdam and offered me the top floor of her apartment as a place to get started, and I jumped on that, and ended up staying here. I came south to do a show. I was in Amsterdam for about a year, and I came south to do a show, and met someone, and moved south, and got married, and had kids, and here we are. Yeah, 15 years later.
Have you found the move has influenced your music at all, or perhaps your songwriting? Can the environment that you're living around do that?
I don't think so. I mean, at this point in time, I don't think it really influences my songwriting. I think my songwriting is more influenced by life experiences at this point in time.
Yeah. Now, there may not be any more solo albums, but you are still performing and touring. What's the extent of your live work these days?
Well, I very much enjoy touring. I've got back from California a couple of weeks ago, doing some shows there. I think as long as I'm able to tour, I'm going to keep doing it. It's something that I get great joy from, going out and playing live for people. So I don't see that ending in the foreseeable future.
Mm. And just before I let you go, in terms of upcoming work, is there anything in the books there, or any recording plans at all? I know not solo, but anything else that you can
Well, Egbert and I are talking about, we're more than talking about it. We're preparing to do a new duo album. We've got all the material. And it's just a case of working the songs out and getting in a studio and seeing how they sound. I think that's probably the next thing on the agenda.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to that. Iain, thanks so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you for an amazing body of work over the years, and even though there may not be any more Iain Matthews albums to come, I'm sure there's still plenty of great music to come from you, just the same.
Thank you, John. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure chatting with you.
All right, you too.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.